Welcome to Dr. Roger and Friends, the bright side of longevity, hosted by three Ps in a podcast, Doc Roger, Teresa, and Danielle. Thanks for joining us for Coffee and Conversation.
Hello and welcome to Movement Matters, easy ways to make movement a part of your day.
So, in the Air Force, I worked with sort of on the side with the shuttle. The first 7 shuttle launches came to the base where we were, and I was in charge of working with them. But that was all very exciting. But, what was really exciting for me as a youngster was the Apollo program. And, many of you listeners probably don't recall that, but some do. What happened in the Apollo program is that this was the first time we went into space for any length of time. And there was a little room within the capsule. And on returning, at least on 2 missions, the astronauts actually had to be, they were recovered in a helicopter and brought to a carrier. They actually had to carry them out on a stretcher. Now, that was just incredible. I mean, these were the highly trained best we had. And in something like 10 days to 2 weeks, they were flat on their back and we didn't know what was going on. Well, in weightlessness, you're in weightlessness. Yeah, if you want to move, you just flick your finger, and that's enough to propel you wherever you want to go. You hardly have to move at all. And even if you do move, your arms don't weigh anything, your legs don't. You're essentially weightless. So your muscles take a vacation. Your heart, which is a muscle, takes a vacation. And that's why they couldn't stand up, because the heart wasn't functioning as it should. And your bones, they're based upon carrying weight, and there's no weight, so we started to lose calcium. This all happened in a very short time.
And that's amazing. On current studies, whenever I see a documentary on what's going on in space, don't they exercise something like 3 hours a day just to maintain what they would be on Earth on an average day?
That's right. Now they do. Now we know, because they used to come back, and in the longer missions, it took sometimes years before they could get back to where they were. But now with all the exercise they're doing, it's less, but it still is a problem. Did you see, there's 2 brothers in Arizona, and one's an astronaut, and I guess they both are. But anyway, one went up for a year or so, and he came back like 2 or 3 inches taller. Because there's none of the gravity that's pressing someone down. So there he is standing next to his brother, his twin, and he's so much taller. Well, now it's come back. But the point of all this is that, in a very, very short time, if we don't use our muscles, if we don't use, be physical and move, there's a danger. You'd say, well, this is space. But you know what we've done? We're so smart. We've invented something on Earth that is very close to weightlessness, and it's killing us. It's sedentary lifestyle, sitting. We weren't meant to do that. We're hunter-gatherers. We're meant to move, and it's all the research says, your brain works better when you move, and your bowel does, and your bones are stronger, and your muscles are stronger. That shouldn't be a surprise. This is what we have been as creatures for eons, for most of the time we've been on Earth. So what a surprise. But what are we doing,
Yeah, didn't you say in your book, in Live Long, Die Short, don't you actually say that they roughly walked 18,000 steps a day at the very least? I mean, and people are struggling now to get in their 10,000 on Fitbit.
Yeah, there's still some hunter-gatherer tribes out there, and they'll go anything from 18 to 23,000 steps a day. And that's incredible. And that was normal. And our physiology is based upon movement, and we seem to be going in the opposite way.
We've truly engineered movement out of our daily lives in so many ways over, I don't know, maybe just one generation, it seems like. The remote control, the escalators everywhere. And it seems like so many professions now more than ever are sedentary. We drive everywhere. There's machines and technology doing all the moving for us. And what we get in our free time doesn't make up for it, I don't think.
Oh, yeah. No, well, if you go work out for an hour and then you go sit in a cubby behind a computer all day, there's still risk. I mean, you're better off working out, but to think that that's enough, it's really not. The Blue Zones, a major component of their lifestyle and their culture is movement, and they don't work out. they just move. They walk, they bike, they work. And it was that way. I remember seeing a picture in a grocery store from the turn of the century. It was like 300 people. It was a big picture of a company or something. And I looked at that. First of all, almost all the men were wearing hats. But more importantly, everyone was lean. I mean, there was no obesity. And I remember as a child, that was the norm when we were moving more. But now, like you say, Teresa, just moving less. There was a recent article in a Mayo Clinic physician wrote it. The title was "Sitting is the New Smoking." The risk is worse than smoking a pack of cigarettes a day for your life.
Yeah, so I have an embarrassing story to tell on that note. And I'm somebody who goes to the gym, do my yoga, do my power walking. I'm very proud of that. Well, a year ago, my work schedule was such where I just couldn't keep up with work and home. So I had a housekeeper come in every couple of weeks for a couple hours to clean. And, after the year had passed, I'm like, I want to manage my schedule. I made some changes and went back to cleaning my house. And can I tell you, I did 3 hours of, scrubbing tile and scrubbing out the bathtub. And I was worn out. And I'm like, I would have never thought, with my lifting weights and everything, that just cleaning the house would be that exhausting. I'm like, I don't remember this being this hard a year ago. So
you didn't have to go to gym that day.
Or
the next day.
I know. Teresa talks a lot about engineering movement out of our lives. Well, I'm guilty.
Well, then you engineered it back in. And it's not just the physical benefits, right, Danielle? There's so many other benefits.
So I can tell you a story that I am kind of proud of. And not too many people know this, but I was actually in a car accident 14 years ago. And I was the first car hit among 4 cars in a pileup and ended up with neck, shoulder, and back injuries, a herniated disc. I already had scoliosis. So I go in to see the neurosurgeon, and they take an MRI, and he's looking at the MRI, and he's looking at me. He's looking at the MRI and looking at me. And he's like, "Can you walk back on your heels?" And I was like, "Okay, yeah." "Can you touch your toes?" Like, "Yeah." And he has me do these, what I think is completely ridiculous. And then he said, "The person that in this MRI should be on an operating table right now." So he said, "I don't know how it is that you're not in a wheelchair and you have the mobility you have, but whatever you're doing, keep doing it because it's working for you." And I was stretching daily. I had my weightlifting, and I was cleaning my own house at the time. So, in addition to all the physical benefits of weight loss and being healthier, it makes you more resilient. So if you're injured, you recover, and it's also a preventive measure, because most people who I've spoken with since then, who've experienced that, have gone through multiple surgeries and are on medication, and knock on wood, I have not had any of that. So I believe it's from movement.
And it's more than just resilience with movement, and I won't use the E word, exercise, just movement, that produces a natural pain reliever so that, pain isn't as severe. You don't need pain medications. You can move more. You're less impaired by pain and things. So, I mean, like Teresa, like you said, this is much more than just, being healthy or being having a exercise tolerance or looking good. This is about life. This is about being all you can be, like we like to talk about.
It's so true. And I love the saying, you're only one workout away from a good mood. There's so many benefits, right, Danielle?
Actually, yeah. I just read a study. It was the Harvard Chan School of Public Health did this study and found that if you ran for 15 minutes a day or walked for an hour, you would reduce your risk of major depression by 26%. And that's one of several studies that have linked physical movement to depression and relief from depression, relief from ADHD and PTSD. And also some of the other stuff is just, as you've mentioned, Roger, as far as pain reduction, they report sharper memory, better sleep, more confidence, less anxiety. And we talked about resilience and just more energy. I know this morning I did not want to go to the gym, but as soon as I went there and got back, I had so much energy for the rest of the day.
$53 billion is spent in healthcare costs related to a sedentary lifestyle. Isn't that something? Wow. So, I mean, it's in so many ways: disease prevention, disease management, lifestyle, and then, all the other mood. When you're depressed, you're more likely to have a health problem that is costly, and not being at work and things of that nature. It's huge. This is like, a fountain of youth. That's not a good term. This is more like, the magic pill maybe people look for. That's all of a sudden going to make them healthy in a big way. Movement is magical.
So clearly movement is, as you said, the magic pill. And we know we should be doing it. And there's usually a knowing doing gap. So what are the next steps?
So in other words, what you're talking about is how do we motivate ourselves to do it even though we don't necessarily feel like doing it?
Right. What we know and what we do, two different things.
So I had a friend who's a CEO of a large company. He called in his senior VPs and said, you got new parking spots and they're a mile from the door. Big parking lot. So every day his senior VPs walked 2 miles. He knew that was a good thing, but he didn't know what it was going to lead to. They were healthier, less healthcare costs, much more productive. They became, so enamored with it, they made sure that everyone in their department got to do it. And it changed the culture of the whole company to one, where there's standing desks and healthcare costs plummeted. And the whole company was one that, even though it wasn't a health-related company, very healthy company. So sometimes people need a little help, and thinking that they need the machine or the right equipment or the right clothes or run marathons, and it doesn't take that, does it?
It doesn't. And you always talk about zealotry, and this is an area that we're tempted to jump on the bandwagon, with both feet, and then within 2 weeks we go flying off and land face first. So it is about the small steps. We've talked about Kaizen in the past, and this is such a perfect place to Kaizen our way toward more movement. There's lots of little ways, as you said, Roger, standing desks. If you're working, if you don't need to take notes and you need to have a meeting, take a walking meeting. Use your breaks to take a walk. I sometimes talk with my sister-in-law over the phone. She lives on the other coast, and we'll schedule a time to talk while we're both walking. Why not do that rather than sit?
Remember we had a meeting in Fort Worth, and the mayor, it was big on all of this. They're a blue zone now, actually, and she has meetings in the park, walking meetings with all of her people. I mean, and it's, I take phone calls normally, walking around, a table, or just walking around the house, just very small things. That town has, it's Texas, but they have worked on diet. They worked on movement. And they worked on social network. We have a community in that town, and they've been benefactors and contributors to that whole culture. So it's really working well. Leadership, but it's just not what people think it is. Everyone thinks that it's a huge investment, lots of sweat involved, getting up 5:30, running, and doing things that you don't like to do. You really didn't have to. Teresa, you ran a fitness center. You have some great ideas on this. How do people decide to get moving? And before you even say it, a huge gap, the biggest improvement in your health comes from when you're sedentary to when you just begin to move a lot. Someone can be running 10 miles and then start to run 20 miles. They improve. They don't improve as much as someone who's sedentary and then just begins to move a little bit. It's magical. So inform us.
That's the message is do a little something, right? It doesn't have to be a marathon. Just do a little something. Walk the dog. Your dog would be so happy. Dogs know this. They're made to walk, and so are we. And
my daughter's dog was just running, and when he's in the house a lot, and when they took him out and to see him run, it is with such joy, because it's more than just mood. I think it's that they're just built to move, and so are we.
Well, what lesson can you learn from your dog? What do you enjoy doing? So, I might not like the marathon, but I'll do yoga every day and I can commit to that. So what can you commit to that you enjoy, whether it's walking the dog? For some people, it's, as you say, Roger, exercise, but for other people, it could be cleaning their house or gardening.
Yeah, absolutely. And just beginning, taking a few more steps a day, parking further, taking the stairs, if you don't have a dog, getting a friend who walks with you, and conversation that goes with it, and all the better. They're walking somewhere instead of driving, biking somewhere instead of driving, and walking on as you talk on the phone. It's everywhere. You see possibilities. I just have to be a little creative.
Yep. Use the stairs. Even small things, they all add up, right? Everything adds up.
Yeah, we don't want to be part of that $53 billion in healthcare costs, and we don't want to be part of the negative moods and the depression and the weak bones and the weak muscles. It makes us more susceptible to falls and everything that comes from that. So once again, movement. Movement really does matter. Movement is, I think, the foundation of living into longevity in a very healthy way. Because if you can't move and be strong and be healthy and navigate the world, it's hard to grow in other areas also. And so this is sort of like the entrance. This is the entrance exam to healthy longevity.
We hope this podcast is a source of inspiration. If you're ready to dive deeper into these concepts and really apply them in your life, join us over at Master Life. You'll have a personalized experience and lots of support to create your own long, bright future. mymasterlife.com. You've been listening to Dr. Roger and Friends, The Bright Side of Longevity. If you like the show, please rate and review, and be sure to click to follow.